Recently, I came across these wild videos. It's an Amazon warehouse allegedly flooding workers on strike.
We just opened the sprinkler release and we were just like, oh, here.
It's the latest pushback from what some are calling America's most anti-union company. Labor strikes have been surging in the last couple years, with more than 500,000 workers on strike in 2023. Now, there's a long list of reasons why people are striking, but one word keeps coming up.
Automation.
Automation.
We can't have automation.
In places like this, jobs are already being replaced by machines, but the protests against it aren't actually new. In fact, they're part of a long history of people fighting back against automation, often in radical ways. For thousands of years, we've used tools to achieve things we normally couldn't. To cook, to travel, to create products we could sell, like textiles. And in the UK, these textile tools were starting to do more and more of the work.
So in the 1700s, you have a series of machines that are invented with the explicit purpose of sort of saving labor or doing the work that that somebody might do, or at least automating it, as we would call it today.
That's Brian Merchant. He's a journalist who wrote this book about the history of machines taking human jobs. It was one of my main sources for this story. You guys should definitely check it out. I put it in the description with the rest of my sources. So these textile workers, called croppers, were really benefiting from new technology that allowed them to crank out large sheets of fabric. And these croppers had a surprisingly progressive work-life balance. They had complete control over when and how they worked. Working from home, they would own their machines and would sell the products at prices that they set. They also had plenty of leisure time, a lot more than many of us have today. Many worked only 3 days a week and spent all their free time at fairs and festivals. Not only was the weekend a holiday, but they even invented a new holiday called Saint Monday that workers would take off to either get drunk or recover from Sunday drinking. By the way, you know who wasn't a fan of Saint Monday? Benjamin Franklin. He wrote in his autobiography that unlike other workers, he wouldn't celebrate Saint Monday, instead coming into work every Monday to impress his boss. Yeah, he was that worker.
Why are you the way that you are?
So all these new machines made workers' jobs a lot easier and freed up more of their time. But something happens at the start of the 1800s that completely changes everything. Try to see if this sounds familiar. The UK government started spending more and more of its money on their war with Napoleon. The war also halted trade, affecting supply chains and causing mass inflation. The price of food and everyday goods skyrocketed, and the textile industry was collapsing. So the merchant class who bought fabrics from these drunk work-from-home croppers began looking for ways to cut their costs. And what was their solution?
We start to see this push by entrepreneurs and sort of factory owners and people sort of interested in making a lot of money in favor of moving a bunch of jobs into one factory where they had control.
These new factories used new machines that prioritized quantity over quality. The expert skillsmanship of the croppers was replaced by giant machines that basically just needed human hands to move levers. Factory work was miserable. Workers were packed into dirty and dangerous factories where they worked brutal 14-hour days, 7 days a week. And for the more delicate work that required smaller hands, the factory owners quickly found a solution. Textile mills were filling up with more and more children, leaving thousands of them disfigured and dead. And on top of all that, the factory owners also cut everyone's wages to way below poverty levels. So in a span of just a couple decades, textile workers who used to own their own machines and their time, who lived their lives according to their own decisions and their own schedules, were now forced to work in the very factories that destroyed their livelihoods, because their only other option was starvation. So I'm here in freezing cold upstate New York, heading to a place that is the perfect example of what automation looks like in the 21st century. I'm really excited to get there. I think we're here, actually. Okay, so update, they didn't let me in, even though they said that they would, so that's a fail. But anyways, distribution centers like this one are already scattered across the entire country, and they're some of the most automated workplaces on the planet. Amazon alone having over 500,000 robots in their warehouses. And in the next 2 years, more than a quarter of US warehouse jobs will be automated. And it's not just warehouse jobs that are on the line. This Oxford study from 2013 found that nearly half of all jobs are at high risk of automation in the coming decades. Now, it is important to mention that this study has been challenged recently because of the way that they did it. They didn't count any new jobs being created by AI and robotics, and they also didn't really specify when exactly a job becomes automated. If AI allows you to do all of your job in half the time, was half of a job automated? Other studies give different numbers depending on the industry and the methods they used. But the overall trend is very much clear. More and more jobs are getting automated. And this automation is actually causing two problems. The first one is more obvious: human workers being replaced by machines. But the other problem is that if more and more jobs are being done by machines, any human workers left are now expected to work like those machines.
Have he sweated for 10 to 12 hours a day and not being able to go to the restroom when he needed to go? They're getting treated like robots, and it's not fair because even robots break down sometimes.
Job automation, low wages, 12-hour workdays. For many workers, today's workplace is starting to resemble the one from the 1800s. So how do workers then respond to this kind of workplace? By the early 1800s, Nottingham became a hub of the textile industry. The workers here felt the squeeze of automation the most. It was here on March 11th in 1811 that a group of workers reached a breaking point and destroyed the machines with their hammers. Just 1 week later, more than 100 textile frames were destroyed all across the city, and soon across the country. When authorities asked who was leading these attacks, the workers all said one name: Ned Ludd.
Ned Ludd was this fictitious person. He was said to be an apprentice cloth worker, a kid who was overworked by his master and who didn't want to spend every day toiling at his master's command. So he just kind of slacked off, and his master went to the magistrate and had him whipped. He got mad, he smashed the machine, and he fled into Sherwood Forest, where he started building an army.
So Ned Ludd was this kind of mythical champion of the people, kind of like Robin Hood. That's why the workers became known as the Luddites. Within a couple months, the Luddites destroyed 25,000 pounds worth of machines. That's around $2 million in damages in today's money. Then they started burning down the mills and attacking the owners. Soon the government started to take action with this. This is a copy of the actual 200-pound reward for anyone that was caught breaking frames. I got it from the UK's National Archives website. They actually have a bunch of really cool stuff on there about the Luddites, like this picture. It's kind of cool, right? And also this one, which is basically a propaganda piece made to discourage other workers from joining the Luddites. They got a fellow weaver to write about how great it was to have little children work with the help of machinery. This guy was literally arguing against the Luddites because they supported the end of child labor. Crazy times. Anyways, all these rewards and propaganda didn't work, so the state intensified their crackdown. First by passing this law, which made machine breaking a crime punishable by death. And then by flooding the country with 14,000 soldiers to round up any Luddites they can find. They sent in more soldiers against the Luddites than they used against Napoleon. And it worked. Just 15 months later, dozens of Luddites were shipped off to the prison colony in Australia, and the leaders were publicly hanged. The Luddite movement died almost as quickly as it started. By the 1930s, the country was packed full of factories, machines, and smog. And the croppers who once controlled their work were now displaced in slums, living in the shadows of the factories. So that's where the story usually ends. The Luddites are basically forgotten in history, with most people today only using the word Luddite to describe their angry uncle who rejects technology for no reason. But that's not who the Luddites actually were.
Even in the day, they were not against all machinery or even the specific machinery. They were just against how it was used. And they said, we are against the machinery that's hurtful to commonality.
They didn't break the textile machines because they hated technological progress. They just didn't want that technological progress to cause social decline. The Luddites imagined a workplace and an economy where workers benefit from new machines while still maintaining control over their work. And a lot of the strikes going on today are the same. The writers that were on strike last year weren't against all use of AI in Hollywood. They just wanted the ability to keep control over their own creative work. The dock workers on strike a couple months ago weren't against technology. They just wanted the ability to keep their livelihoods. Now, obviously, the technology and working conditions today aren't the same as 1811, and workers today haven't yet reached the point of breaking machines taking their jobs. But we can still learn a valuable lesson from the Luddites.
Luddites have given us a good example and an important example to look at the way that it's being deployed in society or even in our specific workplaces and to question it. And it's okay to question it. It's okay to be a Luddite. And in fact, there's great power in being a Luddite.
The story of the Luddites may be forgotten by most people, but their spirit lives on. It's not that we should reject or even destroy machines. It's that in the push for technological progress, we've ignored a lot of people whose livelihoods have been destroyed. We've forgotten about the things that matter most to people: time spent with friends and family, health, and the ability to control our own lives. Hey guys, so this was the first episode of the new year, and it was a really fun one to make. It's exactly the kind of story I like to cover on this channel. This intersection of technology, sociology, and investigative journalism. There's still a lot to learn about this topic. I just scratched the surface on this video. If you want to learn more about the history of automation, definitely check out all the sources that I have in the description. Also, let me know in the comments if you want me to look at different aspects of automation in future videos. A huge thank you to all the experts that helped me make this video. Please check out their links in the description as well. And yeah, this was the first video of the new year. I'm very excited. I have some big plans. If you want to support, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in a couple weeks with the next video. Peace.
As you see, we're sitting down here like, I believe they did that because what we're doing is having an effect. So they're just, being petty right now. But that's not gonna stop us